I'm a postgraduate in Ayurveda and I serve as the research director at the Amrita Center for Advanced Research in Ayurveda, which is one of the institutions affiliated to the Amrita Vishwavidyapeetham University in India, which has been recently ranked as the #1 private university in India. I was involved with several studies to scientifically evaluate the safety and efficacy of Ayurvedic treatments, and we were also the recipients of the first ever research grant from the National Institutes of Health USA to scientifically evaluate Ayurveda outside the United States, and our study was recognized as a blueprint for future studies on complementary alternative medicine, and we received an award from the European Society of Integrative Medicine a couple of years ago. I mean, if you were to think about the origins of Ayurveda, I mean, it's very difficult to determine when this system originated because it's of such antiquity that even the very earliest textbooks of Ayurveda are very organized and full-fledged. We have textbooks on medicine and surgery and pediatrics when we look at the origins of Ayurveda. So we can, by conservative estimates, people say that about 1,500 years before the Common Era, Ayurveda attained a very organized shape, very organized system of medicine with 8 specialities, clinical specialities. So we would say definitely 3,000 years old, but maybe even more. We cannot see through the mists of time, so it's so old that it's difficult to really pinpoint the origins. I'm basically going to talk about the therapeutic and preventive elements of vegetarianist approach to diet in Ayurveda. So what I am going to basically do is to review the evolution of dietary practices, because Ayurveda has more than 2 millennia of experience with diets, and the Ayurvedic texts have described the dietary practices of the people of India across centuries, and also parts of the world, of the ancient world, because Ayurveda talks about Chinese diet, about Greece diet, and then it has tried to understand the pros and cons of vegetarian and non-vegetarian diet. Ayurvedic textbooks also talk about properties of meat, and they also say that these are therapeutically useful in some contexts. But what we basically see is an evolution from a non-vegetarian diet to a vegetarian diet, which by the Middle Ages, like by the 15th century or so, Ayurveda becomes fully established in vegetarian diet. So it's an evolution from a hunter to a farmer, the gentle farmer, and then to a more spiritually aware person who wants to live and sustain himself, inflicting the least injury to other forms of life. So in Ayurveda, we studied the medicinal properties of a large number of herbal or plant sources of food. And that was how, over many centuries, it was possible to discover an alternative for non-vegetarian food. That's the biggest interesting thing about Ayurveda, is that it evolved from a non-vegetarian to a vegetarian diet. It's not that Ayurveda was completely vegetarian right from the beginning. There are descriptions in the Ayurvedic textbooks of why we shouldn't kill animals, because many of these changes, shift from a non-vegetarian to vegetarian diet, happened also due to an awakening, spiritual awakening. The idea that we should not harm the environment, we should not harm other forms of life, and that we must protect and love animals. And so it was through such a process of evolution. So in India, during the period of King Ashoka, this was perhaps the very early instance of formal government-initiated moves to protect animal rights and to ban non-vegetarian food from even the kitchen, even the royal kitchen. So this is an evolutionary thing. So what Ayurveda talks about is that it's not just about vegetarian or non-vegetarian diet. Just by shifting from non-vegetarian to vegetarian, you may not be able to just fulfill all your nutritional requirements. You need to plan your vegetarian diet. And so Ayurveda talks about 8 factors that need to be considered with which you can balance your vegetarian diet. And in exceptional circumstances, you may need to supplement it with non-vegetarian food, especially in therapeutic contexts. And for that, Ayurveda is open. So Ayurveda would say that you must have a predominantly vegetarian diet, which you can discover by a thorough study of the plant sources. And by balancing it, by developing foods that are specific to time, seasons, and the regions, it's possible. Ayurveda, in my understanding, has been one of the earliest attempts of humankind to develop what is called as integrative medicine. So it serves as a model for integrative medicine, because right from the beginning, Ayurveda has tried to point out that different medical approaches will exist in the world. The human body is so complex that one system cannot comprehend it completely. And so it's always necessary to bring multiple systems together. And Ayurveda is a framework. The Charaka Samhita, one of the earliest textbooks of Ayurveda, says that there are so many medical sciences prevalent in the world, it's difficult to decide which one is the best. So we need a framework which can integrate all of them together. So I think Ayurveda is futuristic because of its integrative approach. And what it can offer is actually this experience, this platform, this framework of how multiple systems, that is the challenge here today. We don't have an epistemological framework to bring diverse approaches together. And if you study Ayurveda, not just as herbal medicine, but as a framework for integrative, I think that is the future, because today the world is struggling to bring multiple approaches of healing under one umbrella. What is still missing is that framework. And that's what I think Ayurveda can contribute. I think Ayurveda is spreading in slightly different ways. In Europe, I think Germany is one place where there's a lot of Ayurveda has already got established. There are schools for Ayurveda, there are practitioners. The problem has always been the legal recognition. So what's interesting is now in recent times Ayurveda is also getting into the academia, and the legal situations are different. In US it's different, in Europe it's different. I think even within Europe in different countries it's different. Some of the countries like Latvia, they are a little bit more now opening up. And Switzerland, for example, in recent times, they become very liberal with complementary and alternative medicine. So the things are different, but I think in USA, there has been the establishment of many schools for Ayurveda and many programs in universities, which was not happening before. So I think it's all, the stage is being set for licensed practitioners of Ayurveda getting, qualified. And but what is really missing is a critical mass that is actually needed before the system can get legal recognition. But at this point of time, it's more with the people need it, so they're finding means and ways to bring it into Europe. And so there are small schools which offer treatment or small courses. But from that, it's just beginning to mature. And I think the entry into the academy, into the universities, is a big step forward. And hopefully this will give it a more legal status and recognition in the future. I mean, it's a bit difficult to summarize the whole thing in a few words.